Hello, my name is Miguel Marisco, and I will be talking about Formula One for my informative speech today. Throughout this speech, I aim to explain what Formula One is, how it works, how the drivers and the team compete and win, and most importantly, I want to highlight some of the drivers and teams that make the sport entertaining. So, Formula One started in the 1950s, and to begin with, it started in the 1920s with the idea of it where Grand Prix just means big prize in French, and then thanks to World War II it was scrapped, and later on, after that, they held the first World Championship in Silverstone, England, which is why England is such a big, important part of the sport. The first thing I want to hit on is, what is Formula One? Why do I care? What is it? How can I watch it? Stuff like that. Formula One is a sport where 20 drivers from 10 different teams compete every weekend, year round, for a championship, whether that be the Drivers' Championship or the Constructors' Championship. The Drivers' Championship is individual, so each team presents two drivers. For example, McLaren has Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Those two will compete individually as well as with the other 18 drivers for a Drivers' Championship. So they tend to be kind of selfish at times, but it's all for the benefit of themselves for that Drivers' Championship. But at the end of the year, there's also something called the Constructors' Championship. This Constructors' Championship is for the team. So you have McLaren, you have Mercedes, you have Ferrari, you have Red Bull, stuff like that. That's when both drivers of each team get to compete together, trying to beat other teams, so that the engineers, the developers of the car, and the team principal and the team itself gets uplifted into that championship role. So those are the two championships. Now you may be asking, how do you get points? It's very simple. How you get points is every weekend there's going to be a Grand Prix weekend. And what that consists of is that there's going to be 3 free practices, and that's what they call them, which is just nothing is at stake. All it is just practice around the track. And that tends to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, for example. And all that is just, since realistically the drivers haven't driven in the 4 or 5 days leading up to that race, it's just for them to kind of get back into the car, get back into, the feel of things, and trying to just get back into it. And then come Saturday morning, there's a qualifying for the Grand Prix. What that qualifying is, it consists of Q1, Q2, and Q3. So they divide into 3 sections. And how that works is that depending where you place is where you start for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Sunday is the big race. For Q1, Q2, and Q3, all 20 drivers go out. All they care about is 1 lap, as fast as they can make it. If they make it into the top 15, then they qualify for Q2. Once you make it to Q2, everything is erased, and all you're trying to get to that top 10. So once again, everything is scrapped. All you're trying to do is just 1 lap as fast as you can. Once you make it to that, if you qualify top 10, then you make it to Q3. Once you're in Q3, you're basically set. There's nothing more above that. You're just trying to qualify as fast as possible. And depending where you qualify is where you start the Grand Prix. So if you get the fastest lap in qualifying, then you start at 1, fastest lap, all that stuff. It's pretty simple once you kind of get the gist of it. And then starting on the Grand Prix, that's Sunday. Sunday's the most important thing. Sunday is like the race. And what I like about Formula One is that compared to like other sports, like let's say basketball, soccer, if you like a specific team, then you have to watch multiple games throughout the week, multiple games throughout, the season, stuff like that. Formula One, just one race, once a week. All teams compete at the same time. And what that is for that Grand Prix is, Sunday, it tends to be around like 50 laps per race. And then there's pit strategy, there's all of that good stuff. All you're trying to do is obviously finish first. Pretty simple. If you get first, you get 25 points. You get second, you get 18 points. You get third, you get 15. And then it incrementally drops until you get to 10th. 10th only gets 1 point. After 10th, you don't get any points. So let's say if you finish 15th or you finish 18th, it doesn't matter. You still don't get points. And all you're trying to do is, once again, rack up points for yourself for the Drivers' Championship, but also rack up points for your team for the Constructors' Championship. So what that means is, for example, if first place every single race weekend is a Red Bull driver, for example, let's say it's Max Verstappen for the first for the Red Bull driver, he always wins every single race. But then, placing at number 2 and placing at number 3 are 2 McLaren drivers. For example, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. And let's just say, for example, Red Bull's teammate, Max Verstappen's teammate, doesn't place in the points. He gets 12th every weekend. Max Verstappen might win that drivers' championship for the year. You know, he might be the best driver at the time. But Red Bull as a team won't win that constructors because both of their teammates and both of their drivers aren't, pulling together as a collective group. Whereas, for example, McLaren, maybe they never won a race because, Verstappen always won first, but they got second and third, meaning the constructors won and McLaren as a team wins because they did the best overall. And that is how you score points within Formula One. Going into that third, which is the FIA. The FIA is the governing body in Formula One. The FIA gets to dictate whether something was correct or whether something was wrong that went on in that race. They get to either suspend drivers for like a particular time, or, which once again that never happens, they can completely get them out of the race with a black flag. But more importantly, all the FIA does is they just give penalties. For example, if you did something that was unfair at the time, they might give you a 5-second penalty or a 10-second penalty, which happens pretty often. For example, the race, once again, happens between these white lines. If you get out of those white lines, then you get like an out of bounds penalty of sorts, and that's a 5-second rule. Unless you can give that position back. For example, if there are 2 drivers going into that corner and one of them goes outside and takes the lead, he can either choose to give that position back and go back into second, or he can just take that 5-second penalty at the end of the race or during that pit stop. And that's kind of what the FIA does. All it is just the governing body, handles all the rules, handles everything. Every single team gets the chance to challenge any call at any point in time, and the FIA just takes care of it. Makes it nice and simple, easy for everyone to kind of come together, and then they just send it over to them. Why should I care about Formula One? Which is why a lot of people might ask. The reason why you should care, more important, is because it's a sport that's very fun to watch. It's very easy to watch. I think out of all the sports that I have seen, more often than not, they're probably the easiest ones to watch because once again, it's only once a week. If you don't care about the Formula One practice races, you don't watch them. You don't care about the qualifying, don't watch the qualifying. All that matters is that Formula One Grand Prix race Sunday. It takes about an hour and a half, give or take. And it doesn't matter if you like Ferrari, if you like McLaren, if you like Red Bull, if you like Haas. It doesn't matter. Everyone competes on that Sunday race. So now that I went over the FIA, I went over how to get points, I went over the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship, I just wanted to, kind of sim things up. If anyone had any questions, you guys can go ahead and, leave that to me, and then I will answer them in the comments. But most importantly, I just wanted to inform you guys on what Formula One is, why it's important, and the key teams in terms of things, and why it's important. And more importantly, how you win. Because at the end of the day, that's all we really care about, is how you win. So thank you and have a good day.